Earlier on today you heard from Dave Haskins about how long he's been involved in coaching and in training other coaches. I'm delighted that our next guest speaker was one of Dave's students back at Iron Marsh, the college which some of you will know as Liverpool John Moores University now. Alison got into sport as a swimmer and then trained as a PE teacher, and she's now head of PE at a school just up the road, Newbridge School in Oldham. She's here to talk about coaching children with hidden disabilities. So inevitably I asked Alison, what does she mean by hidden disabilities? And quite simply, it's those which are not immediately obvious to the coach, the teacher, the parent, and so on. AlisonTootill.
Just press that on there. Hi, as John said, my name is AlisonTootill. I'm head of PE. I'm in a really fortunate position in that I teach at Newbridge School, which is now an academy after Ofsted deemed as being as outstanding in 2011. So some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today are the things that I found has been part of my coaching and teaching and learning journey. And it was interesting from the last seminar that we've just had, talking about how teachers evolve and how they go through different coaching journeys to get where they are, and different viewpoints from different people. I am not the expert at this. It's just something that I've learned, and Dave did teach me at Iron Marsh many moons ago. Please feel free to ask questions all the way through it. There is going to be a little bit of interactive stuff, and please feel free. So, first little bit, catchphrase. Can anybody put your hand up, please, and tell me, what do you see? A what? A light switch. All right, and the switch is turned what? The switch is turned off. And that came to me through a Step Into Sport conference that I actually did for Greater Sport in Manchester, with a group of young coaches, basketball coaches actually, aged 16 to 18, starting their coaching journey. And one young man actually said to me, you know the word disabled? And I said, yeah. And he said, that means to turn off. You switch something off. And that really powerful analogy stayed with me all the time. So in the next 30 to 40 minutes, what I want us to look at as a group of teachers, coaches, learners, developers, is how do we turn that off switch onto an on switch. One of the other things that I was thinking about when I was trying to evolve this PowerPoint presentation for sports coach were, what are the triggers? How do we actually turn people onto sport and turn people off sport? And it was interesting in what Paul said about how these young people who are obese, 60% of young people who are obese actually have some other kind of need. And we're going to talk about that, or we're going to discuss that later on. On the day that Sports Coach actually asked me to do this, the English Federation of Disability Sport actually produced a report through the Smith Institute, and it was talking about how young disabled people within the mainstream actually have disengaged from sport, and it was a really powerful message. 70% of the young people surveyed, they want to do more. They want to do more in sport, and they don't really feel that they can. Out of that cohort that was surveyed, 51% felt let down by the experience that they gained through school sport. Now, I would hope that was not... I'm in a SEN setting, and I certainly see massive amount of good practice, not only in the Northwest, but all the way through England, Wales, Scotland. So why are these young people turned off sport? Why are they just not engaging? And that's some of the things that we're going to talk about. So I was looking on Google Images, and I saw this. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really good because 2012 put across to us and the rest of the world really put the spotlight on the Olympics, but more importantly for people like me, the Paralympics. And they really showed these superhumans what's capable. When you put your mind and your body and the drive is behind it, what we're able to do. And so, I thought it'd be good if we had a little bit of a reminder of that. Okay.
Jagging, not sagging, sprawling backwards, I'ma leave it at that. That ain't got nothing to do with rap. Get up, just like that. Get up, just like that. Get up, just like that. Get up, just like that.
I know this is a shock.
Dreaming gangster 20 years later, of course endorse while consciousness faded. New generations believe in them fables. Gangsta boogie on 2 turntables. Thank you for letting us be ourselves. So don't mind me if I repeat myself. These simple lines be good for your health. To keep them drum rhymes on the shelf. Live love life like you just don't care. Never scared. Rain and noise is the moment they fear. Get up, still a beautiful idea.
Fantastic, powerful images. And Channel 4 really did the business, didn't they? They really brought these things to the fore, where they were saying the history, they were saying about where these actual superhumans, where did they come from? And you can see, well, I don't think the person on the right is really a superhero, but people like David Weir really became our role models for the young people. David Weir was born in 1979 and the top of his thighs were broken. He had club feet and his feet didn't move, and his condition was that he had spinal cord transection. So the nerves in the upper 2 parts of his spine didn't really work. David actually attended a special needs school at Kingston upon Thames, and he said afterwards that actually introduced him to the wheelchair racing world. And he actually said in his autobiography that he lived for PE. The lady on the right, I'm not superhuman, but I have the privilege on a day-to-day basis of teaching superhumans. And all the time, coming back to the last keynote, I'm evolving all the time to meet the needs of the young people that we deliver PE to and school sport. Channel 4 put across some real powerful messages, didn't they? The lady at the beginning, the pregnant lady at the beginning, where they were actually saying, I'm sorry. And a lot of the children that I deal with, or the young people that I deal with, many conditions actually happen within the womb. They are the hidden disabilities that no amount of screening, medical screening, can sometimes get around. And those conditions, things like autism, ADHD, Downs to a certain extent, and fetal alcohol conditions, they really affect the starting blocks of life. The birthing process, sometimes when there is an oxygen delay at birth, it creates real developmental delays. Unfortunately, then we get babies who become ill and their aftercare conditions, genetic conditions that we know about, and all these things can affect the young person's start in life. So, the superhumans also brought across to us the Paralympians who've been involved in some trauma, some accident, and unfortunately, and that's really come to the fore, war. The next quote, would anybody like to hazard a guess where this quote comes from? I did get call names, but I grew older, I realised with part of the cruelty that made me even more determined to prove that I wasn't going to be held back, that I couldn't just be equal to other people. I could do better. Would anybody like to guess who that is? No? Kind of. The male equivalent. That is actually David Weir in his book. You know, he was very much aware, and some of the things that I've heard today about self-esteem and children's start in life, how we're looking at the holistic approach for everybody, that how we can make it better. So, these are some of the things that may be hurdles to learning and teaching and coaching, and things that us as practitioners we really, really need to think about. For some children, learning is delayed. Not everybody learns at the same time, and within my school, within my setting, we definitely look at children who learn visually, auditory, or kinesthetically. Kinesthetically really, really is the big one for us. The physical capability, no longer in education, certainly not within my settings, and certainly not within other special needs settings, is that a problem. The physical need is no longer a problem, and that's where you as coaches and teachers really do have to think about the box to look at how PE can be delivered differently and really thinking out the box. Cognitive learning, I was really interested again to hear some of the past speakers think about the processing of information. How do these young people with a learning disability, with a severe learning disability or a physical disability, how do they actually process information? And the other, the social emotional hurdle, if I take it back to David Weir, he went to a special needs school, but he knew he was different. He knew he was physically different, and he wanted to compete. So while it was a hurdle, it was also the starting block of his career. So, the hidden disabilities. I can't this afternoon in 40 minutes go through every single disability that we come across. But these are some of the things that I want you to think about as coaches and as teachers. Knowledge and understanding. Sometimes we need to take this all the way back. So if we set off on a practical session and children just basically don't understand what they need to do. So we're going all the way back, which I'll talk about in the next few slides. And we need to say to these young people, why actually are we doing this? Why are we doing it? We use within my setting, and I know sports coach have taken, well, it's come from sports coach, the FAB analysis. So we're saying to the children all the time, what are your feet doing, what are your arms doing, what's your body doing, what's your brain doing? And they say, oh, Mrs. T, we're fab. We're fab. And it's worked really, really well for me because the children are beginning to understand not only what they're doing, but what also somebody else is doing. The processing and communication that is really, really important. And one of the things that David and I were talking about, do we actually put across to our young people in the correct terminology what we want them to do? Is our communication clear? Are we talking in concrete terms? Are we talking in abstract terms? And this is the big one that we were talking about before, the history and the perception of the self. Going back to Paul's statement of 60% of young people being obese. And in my setting, a certain amount of children who may come out of the mainstream have really, really low self-esteem, of poor perceptions of what they can do. And they have negative experiences. All the time I get, Mrs. T, I can't do it. I can't do it. So we've got to break that mould, and we've actually got to say, well, you know what? You can actually do it. Something that I've been interested in quite recently is looking at some work that's been done by Carol Dweck, who is a American psychologist with Stanford University. And she's actually another psychologist who's looking at the power of the mind and what the mind actually can do, what it's capable of. And what she says is how you can get a simple idea and turn it around and create a love of learning and a resilience to learn. And how we can do that as practitioners. So that the fixed mindset actually says, well, you know what? You are actually born in this way. You can't do anything about it. But the growth mindset actually says through the power of the mind and overcoming all the hurdles that we talked about, that we looked at before, the learning, the capacity, the mental capacity, cognitive learning, social, emotional, that we can actually achieve greater things. That's just something that we're just working at. And I like this analogy that the brain is a muscle. And the more times that we use the brain in PE and in sport, it gets stronger. All the time in PE and in sport and in physical education, we are asking students, we're asking young people to think. What are you doing? The national curriculum actually says, analyse what you're doing, analyse what somebody else is doing, and make it better. And we need to teach those skills. We need to teach that understanding. So imagine all that going on as well as the young people that we deal with ASD. They are aware of others and others' feelings. They don't really understand what to do. They're sometimes unable to show you what to do. They may have an additional impairment, a learning disability, a sensory, a physical, and the social and emotional side where they simply just do not fit in. In my setting, we have to overcome these barriers. And we overcome these barriers quite simply in that we keep our objectives nice and clear. We stick to routine. The use of our language is really, really important. We talk about things being concrete and not abstract. And I'll give you an example of that. I saw a really good high-performance national coach working with a group of young cricketers with a learning disability. And the coach actually asked these young people to imagine that they were in a grass field and the grass was wet and they had to go through it. And it was to do with lifting the body up and working on tiptoes and things like that. And the group of people, they just didn't get it. They just didn't get it. Power of language is really, really important as a coach and as a teacher. And we do need to keep to that concrete communication. In other words, if we'd have just said stand on the tiptoes, they'd have all stood on the tiptoes. So that's perhaps something for you to think about. We are actually as well, within my school setting, especially with this group of young people, we're actually teaching competition. We're teaching young people how to win and how to lose. Because A, it's part of life. B, a lot of our children simply don't cope with it. But in life, you have to have a winner and you have to have a loser. So that's something we're putting into part of our practice. It was interesting to hear about the pathways in the other seminar about how we're working these children through on a pathway. And we actually have a pathway into sport now in my school where we've got 11 young people who we are training to be young leaders with the hope that they're going to actually go and work into employment. So that's interesting as well. The external influential factors are hurdles, but something that we have to work around as practitioners. The young people that come to me at times, they've got issues at home and at school and at college, and the past expectations of them in physical education, in activity sessions, have been poor. They'll say, I'm the worst, miss. I was picked on at school because I'm rubbish at that. So we've got to break out of that and raise the self-esteem. Sometimes we have to think about the environment, we have to think about sound and space and noise that's around us. Going back to my trigger analogy, the staff need to know the triggers. They need to know how to turn the kids onto sport and they need to turn the kids out of sport. And quite incidentally, I'm the only female in my department. They're all males. Routine is really, really important. The kids, going back to that knowledge and understanding, they need to know why they're there. They need to know what they're doing. So our lessons have clear objectives where the children come into our environment, whatever it may be, and that's put across very, very clearly to everybody. So they know that it's time for PE. And the appropriateness of each of activity or session, we're looking to challenge our children. We're looking to challenge them all the time. And challenge is an interesting thing, especially with special needs schools, special needs children, should we say. At times, challenge can overpower and stress them, and sometimes, because of the awe factor, we actually under-challenge our children, where we've got to find that measure just right. So, how have we gone and done this at Newbridge School? Well, to move forwards in the curriculum, we've actually gone back. The children that I teach are aged between 11 and 19, but we've gone back to the basic concepts of play. At the present moment in time, years 7, 8 and 9 are learning how to hula hoop. They're learning how to skip. They're learning how to move. I'm in my PE kit now because 2 hours ago I was teaching agility to year 9. So we're going all the way back to looking at the fundamentals of movement. You know, anybody that is involved with sports coach might say, well, actually, in the LTAD model, we've actually missed our slot. For the type of children that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, we need to teach that. We need to ground that all the way over again. And hopefully, by grounding that in them, going back to this knowledge and understanding, these young people actually understand what they're doing it and what they're doing it for. So we did some agility this morning with year 9, and some of the kids were saying, you know what, Mrs. T, we've actually done some balance as well. And I think, oh, my goodness me, yeah, we're actually, these children are beginning to be aware that they've actually been taught. Participation, everybody joins in. At Newbridge School, everybody joins in. And that's a massive progress indicator for us. Nobody sits on the bench. If you're poorly, well, you're not in school. Everybody joins in, and everybody is in their kit. They have some pride that they're into PE and they're ready to go. Massive progress indicator. The understanding of yourself, if I rewind back to the autistic model, if you're not aware of anybody else, and you're not aware of anybody else around you, how do you understand what anybody else is doing, but how do you understand what you're actually doing? And I'll bring that back to that FAB indicator, where we're really, that's really working for us, for the kids to say, my feet are doing this, my arms are doing this, my brain's doing this, and my body's doing that. It's a shame I couldn't show you my lesson from this morning, because it was very much about what we are doing in PE and why we are doing it. And then finally, when we've been all the way through this model, and we get to key stage 4, we have a pathway of leadership, which is, I can't see my symbol, activate. Activate, we have 11 young men on that pathway, with our pure intention that when they hit 18, 19 years old, that they are going to go onto a pathway into sport, either as coaches, either as young leaders, either in the development industry or within working in a sports centre. So we need to break the mould that just because you have a special educational need or a physical need or a mental need, that you can't participate in sport or you can't actually work in sport. Well, no, we're going to break that mould out with those group of people, and they're working really, really well at the moment. How do we do this? The positive experience through learning. I'm talking to coaches and teachers. You're all aware of that. But we've got to make that as fun as possible. And we're saying to the kids all the time, try, try, try. This is the bog basics of teaching and coaching. To play, to have fun. So a warm-up session may be quite a lot of loud music on, and we get the hula hoops out, and we all do it. It doesn't matter whether you're 14, 15, 16. And the kids come back for more. And we need to create that environment of learning. And then, like I said, they know what they're doing. Their inspiration, I think it comes from anybody. I think if you as practitioners are enthusiastic about what you do, I think that inspiration can come from anywhere. And the other thing is we're challenging these young people all the time to say, how can you do that? How can you do that better? How can your friend do that better? All the time. So we're setting our goals really, really high. We're teaching competition. We're giving them the tools to know how to compete and to show no fear about it. And the kids are getting better at it. We've been doing it over 2 years now. We've actually been teaching them to compete. And they are beginning to get it a little bit. The goals and the expectations are high within the department, and like I said, our objectives are clear, which was something, again, that Ofsted picked up on. The children actually knew that they had been taught. We also have to work, and I'm sure you did this with Dave this morning, because I remember Dave talking about it 20 years ago when I was at Ironmarsh, that we need to understand that in how individuals learn and what are the triggers to turning them on or turning them off to sport. Do children need to be coerced? Or the other thing is, and this is really, really important, are they visual, auditory or kinesthetic learners? A lot of our artistic kids are actually kinesthetic learners. They see it, they almost take a photograph, which I suppose is a visual learner, and then they repeat it back to us, and it's a really, really powerful message. I've got a couple of extra slides, but what I would say to you as coaches and as teachers, if you've never ever done this before, if you've never gone out of your comfort zone to teach children with additional needs or children with hidden disabilities, I would say to give it a go. If you can coach these children or teach these children, you can actually teach anyone. So this quote actually came from a philosopher, quite an ancient philosopher, of try not, do, or do not, there is no try. Would anybody like to guess who that philosopher was? Oh. Have you seen my slides? Have you had a sneak peek over there? No. Who, Yoda said it to who?
Luke Skywalker.
When?
In the swamp.
I might as well go on now. I might as well go on. That's a plus point. That was my note on the quote, who actually said it, the ancient philosopher to his protege. And I actually got that. I didn't get it from Star Wars, but I actually got it from the guy who played R2-D2, who, again, a dwarf who'd gone out of his way. He'd really, really changed his life. He said that Star Wars was the making of his life. So, I know that's been a quick skirtish round. I do have one more quote. Have we got time? Okay, cool. I've just got one more. No, I haven't. Have you put it on? The last one at the end?
Hello, my name is Billy Hodge. I'm 8 years old, and when I grow up, I want to be an Olympic athlete. Because I have hemiplegia, I could take part in the Paralympics when I'm 18 in 2020. They'll be held in either Italy, Egypt, Qatar or South Africa. I love sport and I'm not sure which one I want to win a gold medal at yet. In the Paralympics I could do athletics, archery, cycling, equestrian, judo, football. Did I go in?
Yeah.
Yeah! Rowing. Swimming. Or shooting. If I'm going to achieve a gold medal, I'll have to work hard at my exercise and physio every day and eat healthily. Do you want space? Thank you for watching my Paralympic show.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
thanks to Billy Hodge, ably assisted by Alison.
I think he was better at it than I was.
We have a few moments for questions for Alison. So same routine as before. If you'd like to pop your hand up, and Shanwaz will come round with the microphone. The first question comes from Schools Need Me.
Oh.
Does Alison think PE and school sport is better provided through mainstream schools or through special schools? I think if we put the focus specifically on PE and school sport for children with hidden disabilities.
From my practice, special needs, but I think it comes back to what the gentleman was saying before about having quality provision and quality providers. And I would like to think that my department is, the delivery is quality. And that's down to several things. The planning within the department, I said at the beginning of the presentation that we're always readdressing the children's needs. We're always looking at the different clientele that are coming in, whether we've got students with a physical impairment or a sensory or ASD and things like that. Certainly within the Northwest, in the special needs sector, sport is very, very strong. For me, in special, I don't know what anybody else would think, but...
so yeah. You're down on the special route?
Yeah.
Super. Okay. Thanks, Alison. Any questions from the floor now?
Oh.
Vicky?
I'm just really interested in how you feel, what you feel the biggest benefits have been for the children who are taking, once they start taking part in sport, really engaging with it, what differences maybe you've seen it's made to their lives.
Well, interesting you should say that. It's really impacted upon the entire school. And I'll give an example. At the beginning of every term, we have quite a crazy fitness test, and we say everybody, absolutely everybody within the school does this test. And it starts at, we based it on a 3-minute run. It doesn't matter whether you're in a wheelchair, it doesn't matter whether you're on a whizzy frame, it doesn't matter in what your physical or mental capacity is. Everybody takes part. What we do is we put children within their comfort zone. And it's going back to the slide that I said before, Vicky, about it's very much saying you've got to try. We can't just stop, and having that ethos. I think, again, going back to the other slide about the children are prepared, they're ready to go. So the simple thing of putting somebody in kit, putting everybody in kit, to say, well, actually, you're in a different environment now than the school setting, than a classroom setting. So at this point, you're going to get hot, you're going to get sweaty, it's ready to go, we might have music on, you're going to be asked to move around, you're going to have to do something way out of your comfort zone. And so the children that we've got in, and we start it early, we start it actually in year 7, and next year we're actually open that it's going to start at year 6. We're open that we're going to do quite a lot of transition programs, so the students are actually ready to come into that environment, and they know that they're ready to learn. I think from what I said before, the biggest progress indicator is nobody sits out. Everybody is included. I've had a child with a broken leg who stood up halfway through and said, "Miss, I'm ready to go now." And I'm like, no. And that's worked for me. I think it's whole department mindset, whole school mindset. My head is really passionate about PE, bringing back to what the gentleman was saying before about head teachers and managers, what do they think about it? And so it's really had a massive effect all the way through the school. And I think our expectations are high.
So would it be fair to say, Alison, that as well as encouraging the individual to have a growth mindset, then the school and all the coaches should also have a collective growth mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really interested in the Carol Dweck stuff. We're actually really interested in that. Just because you've been born with one condition, it can't mean that your brain is a powerful tool. Perhaps it is the only thing that is actually stopping you from physically being active. So yeah, I think it's gone all the way through the school. I'd like to think so.
Any further questions from the floor? Yep, Andy?
Yeah, it was just a question really to sort of the key principles as a team of deliverers for PE and school sport. Is there any sort of key, not so much competencies, but sort of standards that you expect in terms of training or?
That's really interesting because within my department, obviously I'm formally trained, but actually our school is actually a teaching school, so the rest of my department isn't actually formally trained, but they are working towards the teacher standards, and it's something within the next 12 months through school, we are actually looking at moving teaching forward. But that's interesting. A lot of our head really believes that some of the best practices actually happen within our school, so perhaps we don't need to go out of our school, and that's certainly the case.
You think that teacher standards are sort of really crucial for
Absolutely.
coaches as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And also looking at Ofsted criteria, what are Ofsted expecting in terms of things like assessment for learning? Are we stopping the learners? You know, when I go back to this thing before about knowledge and understanding of learning, are we going all the way back, and are we questioning the children at frequent stages? Why are we doing this? And the kids, going back to what Vicky said, the kids have got a really good mindset around it. They are beginning to get it. Well, we're doing this, miss. We're doing agility because we need to know how to move. Well, how do you move? You move fast and slow, high and low, fat and thin. And it is really changing the mindset.
Super. So Alison now needs to rush back to school.
I do, yeah.
So perhaps you'll join me again in thanking her.
Thank you.